Welcome back to Smile and Scars, where real strength isn't about fame, but about character. Today's story will take you 30,000 feet in the air, where an arrogant passenger learned that some people you just don't mess with, especially when one of them is Steven Seagal. It was a bright morning in Los Angeles, and Steven Seagal was boarding a commercial flight to Tokyo for a charity martial arts seminar. Despite being one of Hollywood's biggest action stars and a real-life Aikido master, Seagal preferred to fly without private jets whenever he could. He liked being among ordinary people, blending in, staying humble, and keeping his discipline sharp. He found his seat in business class quiet, near the front window side. He placed his bag carefully, put on his glasses, and started reading a book about Zen philosophy. Calm, peaceful, that's how he liked to begin a flight, but not everyone shared that peace. A few rows behind, a tall, loud man named Trent Lawson boarded the plane. He was in his early 30s, brash, overconfident, and used to getting his way. Trent was a tech executive who thought money made him untouchable. He was already arguing with the flight attendant about the overhead storage. "Do you know how much I paid for this ticket?" he barked. "You should be thanking me for flying with your airline." The flight attendant smiled politely, trying to calm him down. "Sir, we'll make sure your bag fits. Please, take your seat so we can prepare for takeoff." Trent muttered a few curses under his breath, rolling his eyes as he shoved his bag into the compartment. The passengers nearby avoided eye contact, pretending to read or look out the window. When he sat down, he looked around, annoyed, and his gaze landed on Steven Seagal. At first, Trent didn't recognize him, but after a moment, his face twisted into a grin. "Wait a second, aren't you that movie guy, the one who fights people in slow motion?" Seagal looked up from his book, his expression calm. "Good morning," he said softly. Trent chuckled, shaking his head. "Man, I used to watch your movies when I was a kid. You're still trying to act tough, huh? I bet it's all fake." A few people turned their heads, whispering. The tension was rising, but Seagal didn't react. He simply turned a page in his book. Trent leaned forward. "Hey, I'm talking to you, old man. Don't ignore me," the flight attendant returned, politely intervening. "Sir, please take your seatbelt and let the passenger read in peace." Trent scoffed. "Oh, I see. He's a big star, so he gets special treatment, huh?" Seagal finally looked up. His eyes, sharp, calm, but powerful, locked on Trent's. "You're disturbing other passengers. Sit down." The quiet authority in his voice made Trent hesitate for half a second, but pride got the better of him. He laughed. "You think you can tell me what to do? You're not on a movie set now." Before things could escalate, the captain's announcement came over the intercom, and Trent reluctantly sat down, muttering insults under his breath. As the plane ascended into the sky, Seagal closed his eyes, breathing steadily, centering himself. But he could sense the man's energy, loud, angry, insecure. The kind of person who needed to prove himself by disrespecting others. Midway through the flight, after the seatbelt signs were turned off, the cabin became quiet. Some people watched movies, others napped. Seagal was sipping tea when he felt a tap on his shoulder. It was Trent again. He leaned down, grinning. "Hey, action hero, let's see some of that martial arts magic. Come on, show me a move." Seagal sighed softly. "This isn't the place," Trent smirked. "What's wrong, scared?" A few passengers nearby began recording on their phones. Seagal noticed, but said nothing. He didn't want a spectacle. "I'm not scared," Seagal replied. "I just know the right time and place for everything. You should learn that too." Trent's smirk faded into anger. "You think you're better than me?" Seagal's tone didn't change. "No, I think you're lost." That line, calm but cutting, hit Trent hard. He sneered and suddenly grabbed Seagal's cup, spilling tea onto his tray. The cabin gasped. "Oops," Trent said mockingly. "Guess even action stars can't handle turbulence." Before Seagal could respond, the lead flight attendant rushed over. "Sir, that's enough. Sit down immediately, or we'll have to report you when we land." Trent leaned back in his seat, smirking at Seagal. "You gonna hit me? Go ahead. Show everyone how tough you really are." Seagal slowly took a napkin, wiped the tea, and placed it aside. He didn't say a word. He just looked at Trent, a long, silent stare that carried more weight than any punch. Trent shifted uneasily. He tried to keep up his grin, but there was something about Seagal's calm that unnerved him. It was like staring into still water and realizing how deep it went. The rest of the flight was tense. People whispered, exchanged looks. Seagal went back to reading. Trent pretended not to be bothered, but his mind was racing. As the flight neared Tokyo, turbulence hit. The plane jolted violently. Passengers gasped. Drinks spilled. The flight attendants struggled to steady themselves, then panic. The overhead bin above Trent popped open, and a heavy suitcase fell toward an elderly woman in the aisle. Before anyone could react, Seagal moved a fast, silent, precise. He reached out, catching the falling suitcase midair before it struck her. Gasps filled the cabin. The woman, shaken, looked up. "Oh my goodness, thank you." Seagal smiled faintly. "You're safe now." The flight attendants rushed over, helping her back into her seat. Trent watched the whole thing, stunned. The man he mocked, the movie star, had just moved like lightning, saving someone without hesitation. When the turbulence settled, Seagal calmly sat back down. Trent glanced at him, conflicted. Finally he muttered, "That was fast. I didn't think you could actually." Seagal didn't look up. "You shouldn't underestimate people, especially the quiet ones." Trent nodded slowly, guilt creeping into his voice. "Yeah, maybe I was out of line." Seagal closed his book, turning to face him. "Everyone gets angry sometimes. What matters is what you do next." The arrogance in Trent's eyes faded, replaced with shame. He swallowed hard, unable to meet Seagal's gaze. The rest of the flight was silent, but this silence wasn't tense anymore, it was humbling. Hours later, as the plane began its descent into Tokyo, Seagal leaned back, eyes closed, at peace again. He had taught another lesson, not through force, but through presence. When they landed, passengers began to disembark. Trent stayed back, waiting until Seagal stood up. "Hey, look," he said quietly, "I'm sorry for all of it." Seagal gave a small nod. "Just learn from it. The world doesn't need more loud men, it needs calm ones." Trent nodded again, truly meaning it. As Seagal stepped off the plane, one of the passengers whispered to a friend, "That man's the real deal." And he was. Not because of the movies or the fame, but because of what he carried, that unshakable discipline, that quiet power, that sense of peace in a world full of noise. Soft outro music fades in, and that's the story for today. A reminder that arrogance often crashes hardest when it meets true wisdom. You've been watching Smile and Scars. If this story moved you, make sure to like, subscribe, and share, because sometimes a simple act of calm courage is the most powerful lesson of all. The hum of conversations, the rolling of luggage, wheels, an airport announcement echoing overhead. The plane doors opened, and passengers began filing out. Steven Seagal stood tall and calm as always, carrying his black duffel bag, moving with that steady grace that drew attention without trying to. Behind him, Trent Lawson followed, quieter now, the arrogance gone, replaced by an uneasy sense of reflection. As Seagal reached the jet bridge, the cool Tokyo air touched his face. He adjusted his sunglasses and started walking toward the arrivals area. But Trent, desperate to redeem himself, hurried up behind him. "Hey, Mr. Seagal," he called out, his tone nervous but sincere. Seagal turned slightly, acknowledging him with a nod. Trent rubbed the back of his neck awkwardly. "Listen, I really messed up back there. I've never seen someone handle a situation like you did. I was just being a jerk. I thought acting tough meant something, but you didn't even have to." "Raise your voice," Seagal gave a faint smile. "Most men who talk about power don't have it. Real strength never needs to shout." Trent lowered his eyes, taking that in. "Yeah, I see that now." They walked together in silence for a few steps until Seagal's driver, a polite Japanese man in a suit, appeared, bowing slightly as he opened the car door. "Welcome back, Sensei Seagal," the driver said respectfully. Trent blinked. "Sensei," the driver nodded. "Yes, Mr. Seagal teaches Aikido here every year. He trains law enforcement officers and charity students." Trent's eyes widened slightly. So all that stuff in your movies, Seagal chuckled softly. Some of it's Hollywood, but the heart of it, discipline, control, peace, that's real. Before stepping into the car, Seagal looked at Trent one last time. You've still got time to become someone better. Remember, respect is something you give before you receive it. Trent nodded, words failing him. Thank you. I won't forget that. Seagal smiled, closed the door, and the car pulled away, disappearing into the crowded Tokyo traffic. But that wasn't the end of the story. Later that afternoon, the news of the mid-air incident had quietly spread. A few passengers had uploaded short clips of Seagal saving the woman from the falling suitcase. The videos went viral, but not because of celebrity drama. The captions read things like, Steven Seagal saves elderly woman during turbulence. Calm power, Steven Seagal handles plane chaos like a true martial artist. Trent, sitting in the airport lounge waiting for his connecting flight, saw those clips. Watching them hit him hard, not because he was in them, but because of how wrong he'd been. He saw Seagal's calmness, the way he moved, the compassion in his eyes after saving that woman. It wasn't about ego, it was about peace. He whispered to himself, I acted like a fool. Just then, a young boy across from him accidentally spilled his drink. Trent got up without hesitation, grabbing napkins and helping clean it up. The boy's mother smiled gratefully. Thank you, Trent smiled back. No problem. I was raised better than how I acted earlier. Something had changed inside him. Meanwhile, across the city, Seagal arrived at a local martial arts dojo. Simple, wooden floors. A quiet garden outside. The students inside bowed as he entered, their respect genuine and deep. He walked to the front of the room, removed his shoes, and stood before the class. Today, he began, we're not just learning how to fight. We're learning how to understand peace. A student raised her hand. Sensei, how can someone strong still stay peaceful? Seagal nodded. Strength is not about hurting people. It's about having the power and choosing not to use it. He paused, looking out the window where the Tokyo skyline gleamed under the fading sun. Sometimes, the hardest battles we face aren't outside, they're inside. The class listened in silence, every word sinking deep. Hours later, as night fell, Trent found himself at a hotel gym, replaying the day's events in his mind. He stood before a mirror, lifting light weights, but it wasn't about strength anymore. He was thinking about control, humility, and change. He remembered Seagal's words, the world doesn't need more loud men, it needs calm ones. That line hit him harder than any punch ever could. He went to his phone, opened social media, and saw more clips of Seagal. But one post stood out, a quote from the star himself that someone had shared years ago. To truly master yourself is to defeat your ego. Trent smiled faintly. All right, Sensei, message received. A few days later, fate brought them face to face again. Seagal was at the same hotel lobby, checking out. Trent saw him from across the room and hesitated, but this time he didn't let fear or pride stop him. He approached calmly. Mr. Seagal, he said, his voice steady but respectful. Seagal turned, recognizing him instantly. I just wanted to thank you again, Trent continued, not just for saving that woman, but for teaching me something I didn't even know I needed to learn. Seagal smiled. Then it wasn't a wasted meeting. Trent chuckled softly. Guess not. I've been trying to fix things you know. Slow down, listen more, stop talking just to prove something. That's a good start. Seagal said, nodding approvingly. The real fight is always with yourself. Before walking away, Seagal placed a hand on his shoulder. Keep walking the right path, son, and remember, peace is power. With that, he stepped into the elevator and disappeared, leaving Trent standing there, not embarrassed, not angry, but inspired. Months later, Trent would tell this story on a podcast. He admitted everything, the arrogance, the humiliation, the lesson he learned. He ended the story with a smile. That day, I met Steven Seagal, but what I really met was humility. The man didn't need to prove he was tough. He just was, and that's when I realized real power isn't loud, it's silent. Soft music fades in peaceful, reflective tones. And that, my friends, is another story of humility meeting strength. Steven Seagal didn't have to throw a punch or raise his voice. His calm was enough to change a man's life forever. Because sometimes the most powerful lessons aren't taught in the ring, they're taught in the quiet moments when pride finally falls silent. You've been watching Smile and Scars. If you enjoyed this story, hit like, share it with someone who needs a reminder about true strength, and subscribe for more powerful stories that show it's not the scars that define us, but lessons we learn from them.